Hello, welcome to this edition of Beyond the Politics, our regular examination of the events happening right here in the Quinte region and the people who work so hard behind the scenes to make it all happen. I'm your host, Paul Martin. Joining me, councillors from the Quinte region, Quinte West Councillor, Ward 1, Zack.
Thank you for having me.
And also from Ward 1, but in the city of Belleville, Allsopp.
Happy to be here, thank you.
Now, let's get right into it. So much has been happening. Homelessness and the drug overdose crisis in Belleville. The two issues, of course, went hand in hand. And as a quick recap, of course, not that long ago, there was an incident in Belleville which was a recurrent example of a growing problem that we have had in the Friendly City for quite some time, which is that accompanied by an increase in homelessness and homeless people, there was also a bad batch of drugs that made their way through the system, resulting in people experiencing drug poisonings more than you would classify them as overdoses. There were 13 calls within 1 hour and then another one the next hour, and in the course of 24 hours there were more than 25, reaching to 35 in a 48-hour period. During that first hour in the afternoon of a Tuesday, it strained emergency resources to the point where they had to issue an advisory for the sole purpose of saying not that there was a danger to the public, but that it was difficult for people to get in and out to deal with all these incidents. And they were asking people to please keep the roads clear and avoid the affected area for a short period of time. So with that, Tyler, and of course being a councillor from Belleville, what was that incident like for you as a councillor, both hearing it as it was happening, because of course we've had similar incidents of a large number of overdoses at once, but this was the only one that rose to the point where eventually it would lead to the declaration of a state of emergency.
Well, it was certainly devastating, and in my role as chair of the Police Service Board, I was getting updated as things were happening in real time so I could have an understanding of what was going on the ground. And just such a tragedy, not only for the people that are suffering, but for our community as a whole. I mean, to really show how bad the problem has gotten in our city. And you're right that a lot of those overdoses were attributable to a bad batch of drugs, either tainted with xylazine or tranq. But this is something that's going on in a lot of communities, and it really opened everyone's eyes to both how bad it is here and also that this can happen effectively anywhere. If a bad batch of drugs hits the streets, within an hour or two you have people falling over and overdosing, and the challenge is that because one of those drugs that was added to it is not opioid based, the Narcan is much less effective. So it treats the fentanyl side of it, which is typically what's the drug that's being laced into, but then doesn't do anything about that other substance. And so emergency responders were really tied up dealing with people who, effectively, many of them were either had died or were about to die if they didn't get there in time. So very challenging situation, and you're right, it puts the whole community at risk, because while emergency responders are tied up with those situations, if someone falls and breaks their leg or has a heart attack or is in a car accident, it really stretches our resources to be able to go and assist those people as well, which can contribute to injuries and deaths in other places. But yeah, certainly a very tough day for us. And I want to thank all the emergency responders who did such a great job and have shown so much resilience through this crisis, not only in those peak situations, but also on an ongoing basis. I've talked to a lot of officers and paramedics who tell me about treating someone one day and then you're there absolutely the next day for the same individual, or even situations where you're attending to an overdose and several of this person's friends are in attendance as well, and they're using the same drug supply that they just watched their friend overdose on. And the pull of the addiction is so strong that even though they can see right next to them the severe effects that could come from what they're taking it anyways, and then needing to be revived as well by the paramedics who are already on scene. So very, very tragic stuff all the way around.
And I'd also like to add thanks to all of our emergency responders, police, fire, and paramedics, of course, who were at the forefront of that particular response incident. Now, Zack, this of course happened in a neighboring community, but at the peak period especially, every ambulance that was available, every set of paramedics was in Belleville at that one location. That just doesn't affect Belleville, that affects every area. So in Quinte West, there also would have been reduced coverage. How much concern was there for you, and what were you seeing when you were seeing this unfold?
Well, there was, I think, tremendous worry in the community. I mean, not only for our neighbors in Belleville and what they were suffering, also, obviously, you were saying kind of stretched medical resources. I think that the fear, initially was, is this going to spread to Quinte West and neighboring communities with that tainted drug supply? And I think that some of the challenges that Tyler was talking about with the inability of the Narcan to work as an antidote because of the non-opioid nature of the xylazine. I had heard and seen short documentaries and news clips from the States. I guess it's been more prominent down there. And it's, just extremely scary. And my heart certainly goes out to all the families that have suffered. And certainly the first responders. I know that they probably had some of the most difficult times of their careers too, and just for it all to happen at once. Anecdotally, I think there might have been some cases in Quinte West, but I think certainly not to the level, not anywhere near the level that was experienced in Belleville, which is obviously a positive thing. But,
how did the experience of searching for a new home during the pandemic affect you, or what did it give you more perspective on this?
Well, it certainly did, and I was fortunate enough that securing a house was something that was very important to me at a young age. So it was my second property. We moved out of our first one, but one of the most frustrating parts of it, well, there's two things. One is the inflated values were very discouraging because you remember sort of 10, 15 years ago, and in this climate, entry-level houses at the time we bought were going for sort of $400,000 to $450,000 in Belleville. And I was reflecting on, properties I had seen go by previously. I'm going, this is what $400,000 gets you? And so people, as we were going through the process, had to try and get me excited about it. My wife would go, oh, but this one's kind of nice. I'm going, yeah, sure. For $400,000, not that nice, And then that was a big part of it, was just being discouraged by what was available in a price range that was affordable at the time. And then the other problem that we had was the bidding wars at that time. A lot of people coming in all cash. Rates were still relatively low. So even if you couldn't come in all cash, people who were better financed were in a good position to buy up additional housing. And that made it very tough. I mean, we would go to a property and, it would be listed at, again, we'll use $400,000 as an example, because that's sort of what the going rate was at the time. It'd be listed at 400. I go, okay, put us in at 460, 15% over. We wouldn't get it, would go for 475. You go to the next property, do the same thing. And it was sort of this constant guessing game of how much extra over the already inflated asking price are we going to have to go to actually secure something. And in the position we were in, we had just found out we were having twin daughters. So we're going from a family of 3 to a family of 5 plus the dog. And so we were in a situation where we really needed more house. And the fact that it was sort of continually escaping us, even though the ask price was high, you also had to go 10, 15, 20% over that and hope that you didn't overshoot, right? We've all been in a situation where you make an offer and someone says yes right away and you go, geez, I should have given that more consideration. And that's sort of how we felt. It was like throwing darts at a board. It was very discouraging. And then you can imagine that for people who are trying to buy the first home and didn't have equity already built up, it's even that much more difficult again, because you have to save up for a continually moving target. You think you've got 10% down and you're ready to buy a $400,000 house. All of a sudden it's actually $500,000 based on the bidding wars. And so that was really frustrating. And the market has settled down considerably since then, but it looks like we might be going back to a relatively low interest environment. And so I expect that some of that will probably occur again. And that's really one of the things that drove me to buy my first home when I did, was when I just left college, and I've been living in a house on Portsmouth that they divided into 7 bedrooms. And my 23-year-old property manager would come over and collect rent from all of us. I just went, this doesn't make sense to me that, he's at this point and we're all living here and we're paying this much for a house that is not worth what that rent was generating. And so I thought this is going to be very important that I secure housing for myself. And then the other challenge is that you look at what the larger centers around us were charging for housing. And, so my first house back in 2013, the entry-level house, instead of being $400,000, was closer to $150,000. And then you're looking at what the prices are in Toronto and in Montreal and in Ottawa. And I felt that there was going to be a push. Immigration numbers were coming up. People were needing to get housing. And I just thought, if people are able to work remotely or travel into the office less, that's going to creep over to our community. And then the pandemic obviously supercharged that, because people couldn't go into the office, and then remote work flourished, and it became a thing where it cascaded all at once. But I did feel that we were going to get there eventually, just because the pricing at that time relative to larger centers was so low.
Zack, there was good news about housing in Quinte West before you go any further. Shoot.
Yes, so I have painted a relatively dour picture so far in the conversations, which there are tremendous challenges, but the Hastings County Committee for Community and Human Services did approve a mixed model or affordable. I think it's kind of yet to be determined, the actual parameters of it, but it's a 32-unit build on the College Street property in Quinte West, and it's been a long time coming for that project, and the city still owns about 2/3 of the lot that the old school was on, and we have our designs to facilitate a similar build on our remaining 2/3, and so I'm very confident. The next council meeting, we're going to have some housing debate and kind of a subcommittee created potentially, and kind of get a working group going to solve some of these issues, get the College Street off the ground. So that's a kind of a green shoot, if you will, that we're going to get that off the ground. So.
Okay, great. We'll deal with talk about some individual things that happened. I want to stay with you actually, Zach, because just this last weekend in Quinte West, you had the volunteer firefighter recognition ceremony, and that happened on Saturday, and that was great because I mean, volunteer firefighters, every community, even the largest in this area, Belleville, has a healthy volunteer firefighter contingent, and in many communities, it's all volunteer firefighters once you get past a certain level of ruralness. What was it like to see these people honored for the hard work they're doing for very little pay or recognition?
It is wonderful. I wasn't actually at this event, but we did actually have also the full-time firefighters long service awards were recently too before council meeting, so I was there, of course. It's great. We have a great mixed contingent in Quinte West, and it is one of the hardest jobs around. You're running toward danger when people are running away. Fundamentally, it's a very, I think, selfless act for the community to get in that field of work. And I know, all have day jobs and tons of other responsibilities, and could certainly be doing something else with that chunk of time. But it's great to see recognition given where it's deserved.
Now, Tyler, there have been so many great things happening in Belleville, and a number of them downtown. We talked about this during the last show with Paul Carr, but of course there was the Super Soup contest, there was the big film festival. I mean, downtown's been receiving some negative press, but so many great things happen downtown all the time.
Well, yeah, and we certainly hope that some of that negative press doesn't get in the way of the great work that people are doing. Downtown Doc Fest was absolutely phenomenal this year. Documentaries submitted from countries all over the world. I didn't even realize until the presentation really how big it is now in terms of the number of films that are submitted, the different directors and things like that. It really has become a very vibrant documentary film festival. And then Savor the Chill obviously is always a really fun contest downtown where, local restaurants get to showcase their soup prowess and, tons of different varieties. One of the new restaurants downtown, Bayleaf, authentic Indian cuisine, won the People's Choice in their first year in business. I think they've been open maybe a couple of weeks before the soup contest. And so it's really nice that not only are these events being very successful, but we're showcasing some of the old standbys as well as some of the new talent and different cuisines that we have available in Belleville. And that's one of the things that I think is going to help contribute to a more vibrant downtown, is having new life down there, new excitement. Different festivals we've seen with the Caribbean Festival, we'll have that one back. A number of great new projects downtown to help reinvigorate that area and give people a reason to go downtown Belleville.
And staying with you, of course, Rick Mercer is doing the speaker series at Loyalist College.
Yes.
And as well, Loyalist announced it's reaching out to its sister campus site in Port Hope to bring Margaret Atwood, Handmaid's Tale, and other legendary author. It would take an entire show just to talk about her prowess. But how great is it as well to see Loyalist College stepping up and making people take notice of what's going on?
Well, it's absolutely critical. I mean, they're one of the largest facilities in the area, a great hotbed for young talent, obviously, with all the programs that they have there. And yeah, I heard about the Rick Mercer. I won't be able to go. I have a committee meeting. But that's one that I was certainly excited about. Margaret Atwood, my mother would love to go to that. She's a big Margaret Atwood fan. I'm sure her whole book club contingent will probably be there. And again, events that target different people, different lifestyles, and things for people to get excited about. And really happy that Loyalist is stepping forward in that way and having some really big names that are going to draw people in.
Zack, Golden Hawks, already really kicking butt all over the rink.
Yeah, it's great team this year, and hoping for a deep deep playoff run. It's kind of an ongoing joke on council that I try not to show up for the games, because last year in the playoffs had a wonderful run, but I believe it was 0-4 in playoff games that I showed up to, or 0-5, some 1-5. It was ridiculous. So kind of a ongoing joke about that. But yeah, great team. I think yeah, deep playoff run coming.
We got about a minute left. Tyler, B-Sense?
Not a hockey guy. I want to be honest with everybody and straightforward. Not a hockey guy. Don't watch. I hope they're doing well. I hope there's lots of people there. Don't know about it.
This is why we should do more in rehearsal. Another event coming up that everyone's we got about 30 seconds left. Quinte International Air Show, happening in Quinte West, but something that everyone's going to be going to. They're hoping for 60,000 people a day. Last thoughts on that, Zach? Yeah,
June 29th and 30th. 100th anniversary air show. It's going to be huge. It's going to be a massive event. Shout out to the Public Works staff and all of the tourism and events, community engagement. They're going to be working overtime, and I'm sure we'll pull it off. It'll be a great showcase for the region.
And Tyler, great for families?
Absolutely love to go. We did to the tour with my kids a little while ago. They love to go to the air show, so super excited about that.
Thank you so much. We're all looking forward to the Quinte International Air Show. This has been Beyond the Politics.